What's up guys, Phoenix here. This video is going to be a Deskbot deck profile of Michael Vutam's second place deck from the Lubbock, Texas regional this past weekend. Now that was a previous format, but the only thing that really changes in terms of card legality for this deck is the banning of Evil Swarm Exciton Knight, which you would obviously have to replace with something else in the extra deck. But other than that, it doesn't really affect much other than possible card choices moving forward, and I will definitely discuss that in a little bit of an information gathering kind of discussion on this deck after the deck list itself is presented. Now, thank you to Vexkis for getting this deck list from the player and making it public. Link will be in the description to his channel if you want to go check that out and see other deck profiles. Now, I should say that as far as I've been able to gather, no one really knows how big this event was in terms of the community. Like, we don't have a confirmable number of how big the event was, how many rounds it was, or anything like that, or what this guy's matchups specifically were. I've heard that he played against 2 Necros, 2 Shaddoll, a BA, and a Magispector at some point along the day, but again, I don't know how many rounds the overall tournament was. But in order to get second place, that's still pretty impressive, because in order to get second place, you have to either have a draw and then win out all your other rounds, or you have to win out and be undefeated until the very last round, and then you lose that round to the only other undefeated in the room other than yourself. Those are the ways you get second place at these events. So, it's regardless of his matchups, he did well. So, I can only imagine that he played against some decent players playing decent decks. But anyway, as far as the deck list goes, 1 copy of Deskbot 1, triple copies of Deskbot 2, triple copies of 3, triple copies of 4, triple copy of 5, and triple copies of Deskbot 6. This looks very standard. The only thing that people really change up is their number ratio on Deskbot 1. Some people like to play 2, some people like to play 1. It's very much player preference on whether or not they want to consider this a brick or not, things like that. But for the remaining monsters, 1 copy of Zephyros to get additional value off Foolish, a Thunder King Ryo. Thunder King backed up by traps is still pretty good, I hear. Seems pretty alright. And then 2 copies of Maxi. Now, I don't think these should probably be mained moving forward into this current format, because we are shifting into a more Pendulum-based and Cosmo-heavy format as of right now. That may change in the near future, but as of right now, that Maxi just doesn't really get a lot of value. So I don't think these should be mained moving forward. Now, his spell lineup was 7 cards. Most interesting thing about it is the lack of machine duplication, which I honestly think is a pretty big detriment. Machine duplication is like the textbook definition of a blowout card in this deck, but I'll discuss more on that later. But his spells they did play is 2 copies of Instant Fusion for Norden, 3 Upstart Goblins for consistency reasons, Foolish Burial, it can hit Zephyros and Deskbot 1, obviously, and then the 1 Raigeki just to be generic board wiping material. For traps, 13 of them, Triple Call the Haunted, functions as another combo piece, getting back Deskbot 2 and whatnot. Triple Fiendish Chain, double Mind Crush, double Mirror Force, Warning Torrential, and Vanity's Emptiness. The extra deck, 2 copies of Norden, 1 Catastor, 1 Nat Beast, 1 Nat Barkion, 1 Black Rose, 1 Yazi, 1 Stardust Dragon, 1 Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier, 1 Deskbot Jet, and then for Exceeds, his only rank 2 was Sky Cavalry Centaria, and then his rank 4s were Abyss Dweller, Exciton Knight, which obviously would have to be replaced in this current format, Castel, and number 106, Giant Hand. The side deck is all just really standard, really generic as well. Triple Retaliating Sea, double MST, double Wavering Eyes, triple Imperial Iron Wall, 2 Light Imprisoning Mirror, and triple Mistake. Now, as far as this deck goes, discussion-wise, I've already touched on my opinion on Maxi. I think that this card could be cut from the main deck moving forward, at least until our metagame becomes more heavily based towards Pendulum spamming and going into Exceeds and things from there. But as of right now, Cosmo looks to be the most represented deck, and this card is very mediocre against them, as well as being very mediocre against Magispector, which is the only current Pendulum deck we have in the format, other than the people that want to play Klee and just don't know how to do anything but pay 800 even with Scout at 1. Like, there are those people that still exist. But other than that, like, BA is really taking a backseat. Shaddolls and Necros got slaughtered on the ban list, so I don't really see this card having a main deck worthy purpose. Maybe in the side deck for those random high output ceiling decks like Synchrons and things like that, people that want to play special summon heavy strategies. You can definitely side this card for that, but I don't think it warrants a spot in the main deck anymore. Machine duplication. I believe not playing machine duplication in this deck is a mistake, because that makes the deck very aggressive, and it allows the deck multiple different blowout plays. You have to think about it in this regard. Machine duplication paired with Deskbot 3 is literally any of these cards. So Machine Duplication with Deskbot 3 in hand gets you Deskbot 2, which gets a search, and then you Machine Dupe out the other two. So you get 3 searches total, which is very, very impactful for sculpting your plays for that turn as well as the remainder of the game. Machine Duplication, even on Deskbot 4, is pretty damn good because it allows you to usually set up plays where you are able to perform 2 rank 4s in a turn, and one of them being something that had spot removal or was something like a Dweller. Very easy to do because you will Machine Dupe the other 2 out. One will stay because the other 2 will go into the rank 4, obviously. You made something like Castell or maybe even Dweller. Anything to detach a material from Deskbot 4 and put a 4 in grave. Then Deskbot 4, the second one that's on the one that's remaining on the field, gets to make a hit over something, and then you can get back the first Deskbot 4. Like, that's something that actually does come up quite a bit, and it's, you know, another thing that makes Machine Duplication really good. But also pairing Machine Duplication with Deskbot 3, going back to that, it obviously has interactions with Deskbot 5. Once, you know, Cyber Dragon Infinity comes out, as of right now, there's not really any like very impactful rank 5s you could play other than like Durandal that you could access with these cards. But Machine Duping out the other 2 copies of Deskbot 6 is very good as well because it allows you to potentially pop 3 spells and traps on the field, which is very good. Like, Deskbot 3 gets you into all these cards, and a lot of people look at Machine Duplication as a brick, but you have to consider, if Machine Duplication is a brick in your eyes, and there's a hand that you opened where you cannot make Machine Duplication live, that means you literally didn't open any of these, because every single one of these makes Machine Duplication live. You can, other than like normal summoning these. So those are obviously factors that come into play. But if you have Machine Duplication and it's not live, that means you literally don't have any of Deskbot 2, Deskbot 3, or Deskbot 4 in your hand. You literally have a hand of only Deskbot 5 and 6. And like, those are, if those are the monsters in your hand, those are the only ones you had. So like, that's something you have to take into consideration, is that it's not really Machine Duplication's fault at that point. It just, your hand was very bad, and Machine Duplication just made it worse. It makes good hands amazing, and it makes mediocre hands amazing, but it makes bad hands worse. That is something I will say for Machine Duplication. But the amount of just aggression it allows this deck to have is what I believe warrants it being played. And I think that moving forward, it's definitely a card that should be played, because this overall build looks very cohesive, and the guy definitely knew what he was trying to do. But it's very trap heavy, and it's a lot slower than a standard, you know, Deskbot deck that you would see being piloted, that I would consider calling standard. And we're moving into a weird point in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Where traps are going to be mattering even less than they have in the past. In the past, we've been able to say, oh, traps, they suck, like against Necros, Shaddolls, things like that. But a well-timed like trap, or a lot of traps in general, would still have some effect on the game. But we're moving into a point in the game where the impact of traps is being reduced even further because of decks like Cosmo, Infernoid, and Magispector. Magispector is literally immune to every single card here except for Warning and Emptiness, and to a lesser extent Mind Crush. Like, it's immune to Phoenix Chains, it's immune to Mirror Force, and it's immune to Torrential, and it's immune to Raigeki. And it's basically immune to Maxi, which you can also lump in as a trap. Cosmo, it can dodge all these cards, except for Warning and Emptiness. Like, it can dodge these very efficiently. You might be able to Mind Crush a ship out of the hand, but there's a lot of ships now, so the potential of them having another one is very high, and your Mind Crush just not doing anything in terms of value other than just taking a card out of their hand that wasn't actually that much of an impactful play. There are certain situations where it'll come up, but very few and far between. And then playing against Infernoids, literally none of these cards matter as soon as they resolve a massive mill other than Warning and Emptiness. Those are the only cards that will actually matter. Torrential, they'll just summon their guys again. Mirror Force, they'll just summon their guys again. Mind Crush, I don't know what you're Mind Crushing. All their summons are inherent. Fiendish Chain, cool, they'll tribute their guy for cost and banish things out of your graveyard. Like, there's all these things that come into play, and those are arguably the 3 best decks moving into this new format. They're the 3, like, most expected decks to be the best decks. So you have to go into that. You have to go into an event planning for that in mind. So I don't think a deck like this will be nearly as good in this format, because of the fact that we're shifting more into decks that are literally the definition of traps don't really do anything to them. Like, even disregarding Magispector's immunity to these cards, like Cosmos and Infernoids play through traps. so efficiently because of cards like Cosmotown and just how the Infernoid deck operates once it has a huge resource pool in its graveyard. So those are things to consider. Overall, the rest of the deck, though, I do like the fact that he included Thunder King. Thunder King backed up by traps is still very good. Thunder King backed up by Max C is also pretty good because you get to just let them go off into the Max C, and then you pick and choose what to negate with the Thunder King. Things like that. The Foolish with Zephyros. I do really like Zephyros' inclusion in this deck because some people will play Deskbot 1 and a Foolish just to get it engraved and into circulation quickly, but then like once you have Deskbot 1 into circulation, Foolish is a blank no matter how many copies of one that you play, whereas Foolish, alongside Call the Haunted as well, allows Zephyros to do really cool things. You can bounce Call with Zephyros to get another Call played. Same thing with Fiendish Chain in this specific build. You can reuse Fiendish Chains, but overall, I believe like bouncing things like Deskbot 3 and getting additional normal summons is also very, very impactful and something that should be considered. You could also, I mean, in very niche situations, Call the Haunted to Max C and bounce to your hand off Zephyros. I mean, I'm pretty sure that comes up at least once in 100 games, so definitely worth talking about. But overall, the rest of the deck I do really like. I do really like it. I do think Wavering Eyes is a 3 of moving forward, simply because we have Pendulum-based decks in the format now. But even if you didn't, like, this card does also benefit you. Even if you're not playing against a Pendulum-based deck, Wavering Eyes triggers these, and that advances your game state. Like, that's something to consider. Playing Wavering Eyes and popping these 2 out of your scale possibly brings back 2 and adds back 3 or 4 to your hand. Like, it does a lot of things in terms of value. And then you also get another Deskbot 5 or another Deskbot 6 to your hand. Like, that's actually just really good in terms of what it allows you to do in terms of sculpting a game state. But those are my overall thoughts on this deck. I think moving forward, definitely cutting some of these traps down, maybe slimming it down. Triple Call of the Haunted is really good because it's a combo piece, obviously. But slimming down a lot of these cards is probably going to be in order to make room for just different things to allow this deck to compete in the format that we're about to be entering into, because I believe this deck's aggression and its OTK potential should be the most like focused on thing because of the fact that this deck does that very well. Anyway, I want to know what you guys think about this deck list in the comments down below, what you would change for the coming format. Things like that. Just spark some discussion as usual. As always, like, comment, subscribe, like the video to support my content's growth and channel growth now as well as in the future. Links are in the description to Vexicus's channel, as I've already said, as well as my own Facebook links. If you want to connect with me, chat with me, whatever, definitely check those out. Click on it if you have not. I greatly appreciate it. It helps me make money, and there's no reason to lie to you guys about that. Definitely click one. Even if you have to remove ad block, it would definitely help me out a lot more than you could ever know, and it would take seconds out of your day. Honestly, it's very easy for you to do, so I would really be thankful if you would decide to take a couple seconds out of your day and do so. But other than that, like I already said, I want to hear what you guys think about this deck in the comments down below, what you guys think of the Deskbot archetype in general, and other than that, as always guys, take care.